Good morning. It is great to have you in today. We are looking for someone who can not only manage the front desk, but also bring a level of professional maturity and a bit of leadership to the role. I see you have about 4 years of experience in administrative operations. To start us off, why don't you tell me a bit about your approach to the front desk and how you see your role within a larger organization?
Good morning and thank you for having me. I view the front desk as the nerve center of the organization. It is not just about greeting people or answering phones, it is about managing the flow of information and the first impression of the entire brand. Over the last 4 years, I have moved from simply executing tasks to optimizing the systems behind those tasks. My approach is to be proactive rather than reactive. I want to anticipate the needs of the executives and the guests before they even articulate them. I see myself as a gatekeeper, yes, but also as a facilitator who ensures that the internal teams can focus on their core work because the administrative logistics at the entrance are handled seamlessly.
That is a great way to frame it. Since you mentioned the first impression, let's talk about the basics. In your experience, how should a visitor be greeted to ensure a positive first impression, and why does that specific greeting matter so much in a professional environment?
For me, it starts with the physical presence. The moment a visitor walks through the door, I make it a point to stand up if I am seated. It shows immediate respect and acknowledgement. I maintain eye contact and offer a genuine, friendly smile. I use a clear, welcoming phrase such as, "Good morning, welcome to the company. How may I assist you today?" I make sure my body language is open and approachable, which helps the visitor feel at ease immediately. As for why it matters, the professional greeting sets the entire tone for the subsequent interaction. It creates a psychological bridge of trust. If a visitor feels ignored or receives a lukewarm greeting, they carry that frustration into their meeting with the executive. A high-quality greeting reflects the organization's standards. It signals that the company is organized, welcoming, and professional. It basically tells the visitor that they are in a place where details matter and they are valued.
I agree. Now, let's move into the actual mechanics of the day. Front desk work is famously chaotic. You often have competing priorities. Imagine this scenario. The phone is ringing, a guest is standing in front of you needing directions to a conference room, and a manager has just rushed up to you with an urgent print job that needs to happen right now. How do you handle those three things simultaneously?
That is a classic front desk scenario. My process for prioritizing competing tasks is based on urgency, importance, and immediate impact. In this specific case, I would first address the guest in front of me. A person standing there is the most immediate physical presence, and their experience is the most visible. I would give them a quick, polite smile and provide the directions or guide them to the room immediately. This takes only a few seconds but resolves the most immediate tension. While I am doing that, I would acknowledge the ringing phone. If I can, I will answer and ask the caller if they can hold for one moment, or I let it go to voicemail if the guest interaction is taking longer. Then I would turn to the manager. I would briefly acknowledge the request with a, "I have got this for you right now," and then execute the print job as soon as the guest is sorted and the phone is handled. The key is to manage expectations through clear communication. By acknowledging everyone, no one feels ignored, even if they have to wait 30 seconds for their specific need to be met.
You mentioned the phone and the guest, but let's go deeper into the communication side. You'll be dealing with a wide range of people here, from external vendors and confused visitors to high-level technical architects and the CEO. How do you adapt your communication style when you are speaking to a highly technical expert versus a non-technical visitor?
Adapting my style is all about adjusting the language, the level of detail, and the focus based on what the listener needs. When I am speaking with a highly technical expert, I move away from generalities. I use precise terminology and I assume a certain level of familiarity with the concepts we are discussing. If we are talking about a system issue or a specific process, I dive into the specifics, focusing on data and technical challenges. I keep the conversation concise and data-driven because technical experts generally value efficiency and accuracy over fluff. On the other hand, when I am assisting a non-technical visitor, I completely strip away the jargon. I simplify complex ideas and focus on the practical impact or the immediate benefit. I find that using analogies and real-world examples works best here. I maintain a much more conversational and guiding tone to ensure they feel included and clear on the directions or information I am providing. The goal is accessibility. I want the non-technical visitor to feel supported without feeling overwhelmed by terminology they don't understand.
That shows a lot of emotional intelligence. Let's talk about the tools of the trade. Beyond the basics, what are 3 key software skills you believe are essential for a modern front desk operation, and how have you used them to improve efficiency?
First, I would say advanced proficiency in Microsoft Office is non-negotiable. Beyond just typing a letter, I use Excel for tracking visitor logs or expense reports and Word for creating standardized templates that other staff can use. It ensures a level of consistency across all outward-facing documents. Second is experience with customer relationship management or CRM software. In my previous roles, I used the CRM not just to log data, but to manage client interactions. For example, if I know a long-term client is visiting, I can check the CRM for their preferences or previous interactions, which allows me to provide a personalized experience the moment they walk in. Third is mastery of scheduling and calendar tools like Google Calendar or Outlook. In a high-level admin role, the calendar is the source of truth. I don't just book slots, I manage buffers, coordinate across different time zones, and ensure that room allocations are optimized. I have actually spent time optimizing these calendars to prevent double bookings and to ensure that executives have enough transition time between high-pressure meetings.
Speaking of calendars, let's move into a more difficult scenario. Scheduling mistakes happen, but in a complex system, they can ripple. If you realized a mistake was made in a scheduling system that now affects multiple departments, what is your immediate corrective action protocol?
My protocol for a systemic error is focused on containment, assessment, and transparency. The very first step is to pause. I would immediately stop any further scheduling changes in that system to prevent the issue from spreading or creating more conflicting entries. You cannot fix a leak while you are still adding water to the tank. Once the system is paused, I move to a rapid assessment. I identify exactly which departments, teams, or individuals are affected and determine the severity of the impact. Is it a 10-minute overlap, or is it a full-day clash for a board meeting? The final and most critical step is transparent communication. I would reach out to all impacted parties immediately. I wouldn't hide the error. I would acknowledge that a mistake was made, explain the steps I am currently taking to rectify it, and provide a realistic timeline for the resolution. The goal here is to minimize disruption and, more importantly, to rebuild trust. By being the one to flag the error and provide the solution, I maintain control of the situation.
I appreciate the emphasis on transparency. Now, let's talk about conflict resolution. Imagine 2 high-ranking executives. Both believe they have reserved the same conference room at the same time. They are both powerful personalities, and neither wants to move. How do you resolve that conflict?
This is where diplomacy and neutrality are essential. I would start by remaining completely calm and professional. I would not take a side or suggest that one person is wrong, even if the system clearly shows who booked it first. My first move is to look for immediate alternatives. I would check the system for any other available rooms of similar size and quality. If a room is available, I would approach the executives or their assistants and suggest the move as a convenience. If no other room is available, I would politely inquire if either meeting could be shifted by 15 minutes or if one of the meetings could be transitioned to a virtual format. I would frame this as a way to ensure both meetings have the space and privacy they need to be successful. If neither executive is flexible and the conflict remains, I would escalate the situation to a shared superior or the office manager. I would do this discreetly, presenting the facts of the conflict and the options I have already tried. The key is to handle it with such diplomacy that the executives feel the resolution is fair, regardless of who eventually gets the room.
That's a very steady approach. Let's pivot to something more operational. You mentioned your experience level, 4 years. At this stage, you're likely being asked to help others. If you were tasked with training new hires on front desk procedures, what key modules or concepts would you prioritize in their training?
I would structure the training into 5 core modules. First, I would focus on communication skills. This isn't just about talking, it is about professional phone etiquette, active listening, and the nuance of written communication. I want them to understand how a single email or a phone greeting can change a client's perception of the company. Second, I would cover customer service fundamentals. This includes the psychology of handling inquiries, the art of resolving complaints without escalating them, and the importance of maintaining a friendly, composed demeanor even when the lobby is full. The third module would be administrative technicalities. I would teach them the specific workflows for managing appointments, handling incoming and outgoing mail, and the organizational systems for documents. This ensures that the operational side of the desk is consistent. Fourth, and very importantly, I would emphasize confidentiality and data security. In a front desk role, you see and hear a lot of sensitive information. I would train them on what information can be shared and what must be kept strictly confidential, especially regarding executive movements and client data. Finally, I would provide deep dive training on the software we use, from the CRM to the booking systems. I would not just show them which buttons to press, but explain why we use the system the way we do, so they can troubleshoot basic issues on their own.
That sounds like a very comprehensive onboarding plan. Now, let's test your ability to handle high-pressure, unexpected events. A high-profile visitor, someone like a major investor or a government official, arrives unexpectedly. They aren't on the schedule, but they require immediate, special accommodation. How do you manage those logistics on the fly?
The first thing I do is remain visible and calm. Panicking is contagious, and a high-profile guest will pick up on that. I would welcome them warmly and immediately assess their needs. I would gather key details, who they are, the purpose of their visit, and any immediate requirements, such as a need for privacy or a specific refreshment. While keeping the guest engaged and comfortable in the lobby, I would immediately notify the relevant internal stakeholders. I would alert security and the senior management team. I would not just send a generic email. I would use the fastest communication channel available, likely a direct phone call or an urgent internal message, to let the executive know that their guest has arrived. Simultaneously, I would secure a private meeting space. I would ensure the room is prepared, checking that the tech is working and that the environment is professional. I would coordinate with the catering or office services team to provide high-end refreshments. Throughout the process, my goal is to make the visitor feel like their unexpected arrival was actually expected and welcomed. Coordination and speed are the two most important factors here.
Let's switch gears to the more routine, but still complex, parts of the job. Vendor management can be a headache. What is your experience in managing vendors or coordinating deliveries, and how do you ensure the office doesn't run out of essentials or face disruptions?
I view vendor management as a relationship-building exercise. It is not just about ordering supplies, it is about overseeing the entire life cycle of the supply chain for the office. This involves negotiating contracts to ensure we are getting the best value, tracking orders meticulously, and maintaining a clear line of communication with the representatives. To avoid disruptions, I implement a proactive tracking system. I don't wait until we are out of toner or coffee to order more. I establish par levels for essential supplies, basically a minimum threshold. When we hit that threshold, a reorder is triggered automatically. I also keep a vetted list of backup vendors. If our primary courier service has a strike or our main stationary supplier has a backorder, I don't want to be scrambling. I have a secondary and tertiary option already researched and approved. This level of organization ensures that the office continues to run smoothly without the staff ever noticing there was a potential shortage.
That is a very professional approach to a task that many people overlook. Now, let's talk about a difficult social situation. A long-term valued client is upset. They were promised a meeting time, but it was canceled without any notice, and they've just found out. What escalation process do you follow to handle this?
First and foremost, I would listen. I would let the client express their frustration without interrupting. I would acknowledge their feelings and offer a sincere apology for the inconvenience. I would take full responsibility on behalf of the office, rather than blaming a specific colleague or a system glitch. After calming the immediate tension, I would gather all the facts. I would look into the scheduling history to see who was responsible for the booking and where the communication breakdown occurred. This isn't to assign blame, but to understand the root cause so it doesn't happen again. Then I would escalate the issue to the appropriate manager or the executive involved. I would present the situation clearly. Here is the client, here is the error, and here is the current state of their frustration. I would then work with the manager to find the earliest possible time to reschedule. I would follow up with the client promptly, not just with a new time but with a gesture of goodwill, perhaps offering to arrange their transportation or providing a high-level apology from the executive themselves. The goal is to move from a point of friction back to a point of trust.
You've mentioned the word multitasking a few times. In some circles, people say multitasking is a myth and that it is actually just rapid task switching. In the context of a front desk role, how do you define multitasking, and what is your actual process for managing those tasks?
I agree with the idea that it is essentially rapid task switching. In a front desk role, multitasking means the ability to handle multiple streams of responsibility simultaneously without letting the quality of any single task suffer. It is the art of switching from a phone call to a guest check-in, then to an email and back to the guest, all while maintaining a level of poise and professionalism. My actual process for managing this is based on a continuous prioritization loop. Every time a new task enters my field of vision, I perform a split-second assessment. Is this urgent? What is the impact if I delay this by 2 minutes? I use a mental and sometimes physical list where I sort tasks by deadline and consequence. High-consequence tasks, like a ringing executive line, get priority. Tasks that are important but not urgent, like organizing the mail, are scheduled for the quieter windows of the day. I also break larger administrative projects into smaller, bite-sized steps. This way, if I am interrupted by a visitor, I can pause a small step and resume it easily without losing my place in a larger project. Communication is the glue here. I let people know I've received their request and give them a timeline, which prevents them from checking back in and creating more interruptions.
Let's talk about accuracy. In an admin role, a small mistake in a message or a date can cause a huge problem. How do you ensure that important messages are relayed accurately every single time?
I use a structured verification approach. When I receive a message, whether it is over the phone or in person, I listen with full attention and take notes. Once the speaker is finished, I summarize the main points back to them in my own words. I will say, just to make sure I have this exactly right, you want Mr. Smith to call you back regarding the Q3 reports by 4 p.m. today. Correct. This step of active confirmation eliminates about 90% of potential errors. When I pass the message along to the recipient, I use clear, simple language. I avoid jargon that could be misinterpreted. To close the loop, I always seek confirmation of receipt. If I send a message via email or a digital note, I ask for a brief acknowledgement. If it is a verbal message, I might follow up with a quick written note. This ensures that the message didn't just leave my desk, but that it actually landed with the right person and was understood.
You've handled a lot of different scenarios today. I want to touch on stakeholder management. You often have multiple people, each with a different level of authority, making demands on your time. How do you manage these competing demands without burning out or offending anyone?
Managing multiple stakeholders requires a balance of transparency, prioritization, and boundary setting. First, I make sure I fully understand the needs and the hard deadlines of each person. I don't assume that because someone is a senior executive, their request is automatically more urgent than a critical facility issue, though usually it is. I set realistic expectations from the start. If 3 people ask for things at once, I don't just say yes to everyone and then fail to deliver. I explain my current timeline. I might say I am currently finalizing a report for the director, but I can certainly have your request completed within the hour. By providing a specific timeline, I am not saying no, I am saying when. This manages their expectations and shows that I am organized. I also provide regular updates. If a task is taking longer than expected, I let the stakeholder know before the deadline passes. This maintains trust and shows that I am still mindful of their needs.
That is a very mature way to handle it. Now, looking at the bigger picture, every industry has its own quirks. Whether it is finance, healthcare, or tech, there is specific knowledge required. What industry knowledge do you think is crucial for front desk success, and how do you go about acquiring it?
Industry knowledge is critical because it transforms the front desk from a clerical position into a strategic one. It allows you to understand the needs of the clients and comply with regulations. For example, in healthcare, knowing basic medical terminology and HIPAA regulations is a legal necessity for patient privacy. In finance, understanding the basics of compliance and common transaction types allows the admin to filter inquiries more effectively before they even reach the specialist. I acquire this knowledge by being proactive. I don't wait for a training manual. I start by shadowing experienced colleagues and asking questions about the why behind certain processes. I also take industry-specific short courses or attend workshops if they are available. I make it a habit to read industry publications and stay updated on current trends. If I notice a recurring question from clients, I research that topic so I can provide a more helpful answer the next time. The goal is to speak the language of the business, which builds immediate credibility with both the clients and the internal team.
Let's go back to a client interaction. A long-term guest is complaining. They aren't angry, but they are frustrated because the booking system is slow and difficult to use. They are a VIP, so you want to handle this carefully. How do you respond?
First, I would acknowledge the frustration immediately. I would thank the guest for bringing the issue to my attention and apologize for the inconvenience. I want them to feel that their feedback is valued, not just tolerated. Instead of giving a generic answer, I would ask specific, probing questions to understand the exact pain points. I would ask which specific part of the process feels slow. Is it the login, the date selection, or the payment page? This shows the guest that I am actually interested in solving the problem. After gathering these details, I would assure them that I am escalating the issue to the IT or booking team for a formal review. I would let them know that their feedback as a long-term guest is particularly important for improving the system for everyone. In the immediate term, I would remove the friction for them. I would offer to complete the booking on their behalf right then and there, or provide an alternative method like a direct phone booking. Finally, I would make a note to follow up with them once the issue is resolved. Closing that loop is what turns a frustrated guest into a loyal one.
Last few questions now. Let's talk about the physical environment. Equipment fails. A printer jams, or a scanner goes down right when a manager needs it for a meeting. What is your immediate course of action?
My first step is a quick triage. I assess the issue to see if it is a simple fix, something like a paper jam, a loose cable, or an error message that can be cleared with a restart. If it is a 5-minute fix, I handle it immediately to minimize downtime. If the issue is more complex, I immediately notify the appropriate maintenance or IT team. When I do this, I don't just say the printer is broken. I provide the specific error code, the steps I have already taken to try and fix it, and the level of urgency. While the equipment is being repaired, I focus on the workaround. I would identify the nearest working printer and redirect the manager's job there, or I would offer to have the documents printed from another department. The goal is to ensure that the business process doesn't stop just because a piece of hardware did.
You've given very thorough answers today. I can tell you've spent a lot of time thinking about the systems and the psychology behind the role. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or questions for me about the team or the expectations for this position?
I have one main question. Given the growth of the company, is there a specific area where you feel the front desk operations are currently lagging? I am very interested in not just maintaining the current systems, but in identifying the gaps and implementing optimizations that can help the administrative side scale as the company grows. I would love to know where you see the biggest opportunity for improvement.
That's a great question. We actually struggle a bit with the transition between our different scheduling platforms, which is exactly why we are looking for someone with your level of experience to help us streamline that. We want someone who can look at the friction points and suggest a better way of doing things.
That sounds like a challenge I would really enjoy. I have a lot of experience in auditing those kinds of workflows and finding a more intuitive way to manage them. I believe that with the right structure, you can reduce those friction points significantly.
I agree. Well, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. We have a few more candidates to interview, but we will get back to you by the end of the week with our decision. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.